just to warn everybody, whatever you say now will go live. Whatever is said will go live on Facebook right now, so Emily, behave. It said, Emily, behave. Whatever you say is going live on Facebook. Not yet. Working on that. Yeah. Before we were live streaming. All right, we'll start in 1 minute. So if anybody's joining us online, hopefully you can hear us because we don't have George at the soundboard tonight. And we're going to keep it very simple. I feel like my chair is really low compared to the height of the podium. And I feel like I'm going to be swinging around a lot. So, all right, well, thank you for joining us for our Ash Wednesday service this year. The Ash Wednesday is the beginning of the Lent season. And Lent is a 46-day. It's 40 days of fasting and then Sundays for celebration. But it's a 46-day season of prayers, fasting, and a call to self-evaluation and repentance. It's to take a look at not only ourselves as individuals, but ourselves as a community, as a church, both locally and globally, to see of our ways, but to see what we need to shed so that we can keep on moving forward in a positive direction. Lent is something that has been going on for an extremely long period of time. It is not something that is new. It is something that the fasting began, the concept of the fasts also go back all the way to the Old Testament times, but is really the Council of Nicaea back in 325 AD, where they kind of set aside this time for reflection. Lent was originally not 40 days, but it was a week-long time where people were asked if they would consider joining the church community. It was a time that people would set aside and they would experience what the church body would do. They would experience what it was like, and it was the expression of the ashes, was that idea of the repentance from turning away from where they used to, how they used to live life, to now this life of church. In 2026, church has become a very cultural thing instead of maybe a countercultural thing the way that it should be. We've seen church and religion be hijacked by politics, by sport, by a whole bunch of different things. And I think one of the things that as a church body, both individually and corporately, one of the things that the church should be doing globally this year is reflecting on its association. Who does the church associate with? Not from the standpoint that we should have people that we do and do not let in church, but who do we align ourselves with? Who do we go to when it's a time of help? Who do we reach out to, and who do we claim we represent first and foremost? So a couple of times when the number 40 seems to pop up in the scriptures, you have Noah and the flood. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The idea of cleansing happening there. An idea of God, almost as Dean would say every now and then, resetting, even though the reset didn't work, did it, Dean? Nope. Just that reset, that cleansing, that washing away. We have Moses who goes up to get the law on Mount Sinai. He's there for 40 days. And as he has an encounter with God, he comes down and he has this glow about him. You have Elijah who takes his journey to Mount Horeb for 40 days. And then Jesus, this is where we as the church kind of plant ourselves. He fasts for 40 days and 40 nights in the desert after he's baptized. So in the church calendar, we come from Advent and we celebrate Christmas, and we have this big mountaintop, and we just got done talking about the mountaintops last Sunday in our service. And now this Lent time is that time to slow down, to take a breath. And in a world where everything happens so fast, I think we struggle with that. I know I do. I asked this question a few Sundays ago. How many people struggle with just watching a TV show without having their phone in their hand? I found myself struggling to get through a 30-minute TV show nowadays, or pick up a book and like 3 minutes in, I'm like, why am I bored? Why do I need to be scrolling and reading at the same time? Our brains have now been wired for instant gratification. What used to take a long time, you used to have to watch a whole video. Now you can go on, watch a highlight video. You don't have to watch a basketball game anymore. You can go and watch the 7-minute highlights the next day. What we're called to do in Lent, first of all, is to slow down, to take that deep breath and not rush, and savor the moment that we are in, and not be distracted. A lot of us use everything around us, whether it's our phones, our family, relationships, to distract ourselves from having to look at ourselves. And part of Lent is pushing those distractions away and taking a moment to look at ourselves and say, what about me as an individual do I not want to take past Easter? Because if you're going to change a habit, you can't just change a habit like that. It takes time. So there's 40 days we're almost conditioning ourselves, and some people give up chocolate, some people, and the chocolate's a great one, because how many of you like to pick up chocolate afterwards? Like you give up chocolate and you're like, I can't wait till Easter Sunday. I'm going to get that chocolate egg. And you guys, chocolate eggs are different here, because I think it's in the United States where the chocolate egg can't have the toy inside of it. You guys, those Kinder eggs, it has to be, anyway, I'm digressing. But we also need to look at not only giving up chocolate, but what habits do we have that are unbecoming of somebody that we align ourselves with being Christ, that we don't want to pick back up on Easter morning, that we're not excited to pick back up, that if we pick back up, it would feel like we're doing a disservice to our faith. And through 3 ways of us addressing ourselves do we come to this conclusion. The first one is prayer. Prayer can be difficult, because prayer, again, is being still and knowing God is God, who God says they are, but taking in that moment of silence, reflecting and talking to God and not hearing answers, not hearing Charlton, whatever his name is, voice coming out of heaven, and hearing, being able to be silent and praying and know that maybe there's going to be no audible answer. Prayer is also something that we get mixed up with. We used to, growing up, we were always told, pray for what you want. And in reality, we find that prayer is about us aligning our will with God's will. Jesus, when he prays the dangerous thing at the end, not my will, but your will be done. Jesus doesn't pray when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane to convince God of something. He says, if there's any other way, but if there isn't, we'll do it your way anyway. A lot of our prayers, or sometimes a lot of my prayers, are, let's do it my way. Hey, God, I know what we should be doing, and if you do it on my time frame, do you know how good that's going to be? Great. And how often does my timeline line up with God's timeline? Rarely, because I'm the stubborn one. So we go for prayer, fasting, removing ourselves from things that distract us. A lot of times, like Ramadan starts today as well, the Muslim season of Ramadan, where they don't eat from sun up to sundown. There's no water, no food. They don't do anything, and they have a feast at the end of each day. And they stop eating food. They don't do all this. Fasting, when it becomes only those physical things, can be something that's very easy for us to want to pick up again, because we do need that food, that water, and all those things. But fasting from things that are not healthy for us spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Being able to identify those things in our lives that weigh us down. How many of you have ever had something that weigh you down and you're like, I just want to get rid of it, and it's the hardest habit to break? I mean, there's people, you talk to some people, like my dad said he was able to quit smoking in a day. I'm like, how the heck did you quit smoking cigarettes in a day? He said he just stopped. I'm like, that's crazy. I know people who struggle to do it. They decide they're going to quit, and then 50 years later, they're still deciding they're going to quit. So it's these habits that are really hard to break, and we look at the physical, whether it's food or addictions, but we tend to neglect the spiritual, the emotional, and the mental. And that's what I think we as church should be really focused on this year, is what are these emotional, spiritual, and mental things that we are holding on to that weigh us down, that negative speak, ability to say that we are less than, remembering that we are new creations in Christ. One of the things we deal with people in addiction is the understanding that if you're sober one day, that means you're what? You're sober. It doesn't matter if you've been sober one day or you've been sober 100 days. In that present moment, you're sober. That's to be celebrated. Too many times we get bogged down. And then the last one is almsgiving. It sounds like something out of a Monty Python movie where they're walking around and they're hitting their heads. Where everybody, anybody seen Monty Python? Yeah, we got a couple of Monty Python fans. Almsgiving is basically the idea of not thinking of yourself, but thinking of what others need. That's the simplicity of it. Too often we think that means we have to give to a church, the church coffers, where in reality, almsgiving is giving of ourselves to other people. If that's through the church, terrific, but if that's through other methods of distributing what we have to help other people, then we do that. So it's prayer, fasting, and then almsgiving. But for us to get to this place, we have to make a decision. We have to decide to do something. So this is an invitation, being Ash Wednesday, to remember a couple of things. That when we put the ashes on, we say, from ashes we came, and to ashes we will return. It's remembering that we are mortal. We're not immortal. This body, this flesh that we carry around will cease to be. How many of you have experienced aging recently? And you're like, this is not fun. I was just telling them before I came in, I feel like I'm going to have to take my glasses up and down all the time to be able to read this properly because I'm getting old. But it's true. We need to remember that we are impermanent, that we are born, and as the author of Ecclesiastes says, is meaningless. Everything is just like a whisper. It's like a breath of air. One minute you're born, the next minute you die, and what continues going on? Everything else. A lot of us think we're the main character in the stories. We think we're the central focal point of everybody's making their decisions based around us, or am I the only egotistical one here? But we think the world revolves around us. But part of Lent, part of specifically Ash Wednesday, is that recalibration of that we're not the main characters in any of the story, and the main character is God himself. So we're going to look at a couple scriptures to start off with, but one of the things that we want to kind of break ourselves from is the need to be satisfied. How many of you feel like you always have this need to be satisfied, but that satisfaction is never quenched? You always need more. You always feel like there is something more, and because of that need for satisfaction that is never quenched, we keep chasing something else. So we're going to start in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verses 12 through 13. It says this: "Even yet now, declares the Lord, return to me with your heart. Rend your hearts and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God. He is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love." And then we're going to look at the Beatitudes, but not Matthew's version of the Beatitudes. We're going to look at Luke's version of the Beatitudes because they're a little bit more slap you in the face. Matthew's seem like nice, and everybody likes those. Those are the ones that go nicely on your walls. But Luke's Beatitude says this: "Blessed are you who are poor, but woe to you who are rich. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry." There's this warning in Luke's Beatitudes of happy or blessed are these people, and woe to those who are the opposite. And he uses words very specifically. Blessed are those who are poor. That's the counterintuitive to what we would say today. If we're poor, and he's being very literal, blessed are you who are poor, but woe to you who are rich. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry. So first of all, we want to break our addiction to satisfaction. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 2, it starts off, meaningless, everything is completely meaningless. Have you ever been in the point of your life where you're just like, this makes no sense, it is pointless. I feel like I'm just running the rat race and doing the same thing all the time, and I get up, I work, I go to bed, I go to sleep, I wake up with a headache, I get up, I go to work, I'm looking forward to retirement, I retire, and it's still the same rat race, and I still feel like everything is meaningless. It's kind of a depressing place to be. kind of is a very depressing place to be. But he starts off in Ecclesiastes that everything is meaningless. Everything is completely useless. See, we live in this world that promises satisfaction at every turn. If you're hungry, you go to McDonald's and you're satisfied for a moment, but boy, if you don't go to McDonald's, you go to Taco Bell, it has the opposite effect. Cleans you out and you're hungry again kind of thing. But we live in a world that promises satisfaction. If you only can achieve this, you shall be satisfied. If only you have this, you shall be satisfied. And yet we remain perpetually empty. We remain empty all the time. We had that feeling of, if only I could have, then I would be okay. Has anybody, I remember thinking back in the day, like, if only I could pay all my bills, then I will be okay. And then you get able to pay all your bills, and suddenly you have more bills. Have you ever realized that? Like, like more money means what, usually? More problems. I'm not saying that there's a happy balance. I see they've done a study about the happy balance of how much income keeps people happy, and then if they go over that amount, then they become sad because they have more problems. But this idea that we need to constantly be satisfied is going to fail us, because we're looking for satisfaction in all the wrong places. We're looking in satisfaction in all the places that are trying to resell us something else. You watch the Super Bowl, and you watch all the things that they're trying to sell you. That 2027 Hemi truck will be a 2028 Hemi truck next year. And if you don't have the new one, how are you going to be able to move that ottoman? You moved it without the Hemi today, I'm assuming. So in literature and in movies, there's this plot device called a MacGuffin. And the MacGuffin is a very interesting thing. How many of you have ever seen the Mission Impossible movies where they're chasing the rabbit? The rabbit is this like jump drive, and nobody knows what's on the jump drive. Nobody knows what it is, but everybody wants it. And the whole story is everybody's trying to get this USB drive, but nobody knows what's on it. But everybody's willing to throw their bodies off trains and out of airplanes to get this one thing. And you never end up knowing what it is, but it's the whole thing that moves the plot along. It's called a MacGuffin. Have you watched, there was a new movie that came out for kids where the main plot device was this kind of metal called MacGuffinite. And as we're watching with Annie and the kids, I'm laughing as I keep referring to it. And Emmett's like, why is it funny? I'm like, it's literally funny. It's literature, MacGuffin. Anyway, our faith can sometimes be that MacGuffin that we always keep chasing. That satisfaction that never comes. That if I come to church, if I do this, if I do that, our faith can become that thing that we seek satisfaction in that never satisfies us. Because we're chasing something that we're being sold that is not real. Because we're unfortunately told inside of the American faith sometimes that if you do all the right things, that everything will go well. And that we can do all the right things, and does everything go well? The answer is no. We can do all the right, we start telling our kids, if you do all the right things, that good always prevails. Does good always prevail? It doesn't. Does the good guy always win? Do the people who walk off in the sunset have the perfect marriage every time? 0% of the time. We'll go with that one if we're being realistic. 0% of that. There's always stuff that goes on. And we use our faith as that MacGuffin, that thing to find satisfaction, and then we get to a point where we're disappointed. And as we're disappointed in our faith, it's because we've been sold a faith that is that is unrealistic. This faith that we're told as little kids that if you do everything right, God will bless you. But if you do all these other things, then it's because God's punishing you. And we get into this weird way of looking at our faith that we try to start appeasing our faith so that we can get what we want. And I was talking to a kid today. They're talking about giving plasma and blood. And I guess they're doing a blood drive at the school sometime soon. And this kid was talking to me. He goes, I'm not giving blood at the school. I'm like, why? He's like, I'm going to Grand Rapids. They pay me by the pint. So we had this interaction. I'm like, so why are you giving blood? It helps people. So why do you give it here? I don't get paid. I'm going to Grand Rapids because they pay me to do it. So why are you giving blood? Because it helps. I'm like, you're not giving blood because it helps people. You're giving blood because you get paid, and the side effect is it might help people. And I said, you got to switch them around. It's okay to say you're going to get, I don't care. If you want to do it, get paid, go get paid. But there's this concept that we need to start looking at our faith, not what we can get out of our faith, but what we invest into our faith communities. And we live in a world where it's all about what I can get and not about what I can give. And part of that, we end up going into John chapter 4, where Jesus is meeting with the woman at the well, and she's drawing water, and he's thirsty, and he asks for water, and he goes, and he says this in John chapter 4, everyone who drinks of the water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never thirst again. And we're talking about this woman now it says that she's had 5 husbands. The man that she's currently with is not her husband. And we're not talking about like the Weston's form of marriage. We're talking about the kind of marriage that was in the Bible times where your protection came from your husband. And if your husband died, then you had to marry his brother kind of thing. It's not this romantic Romeo and Juliet. They saw each other and they're star-crossed lovers and all this bubbly thing. It was all about possession. And it was basically this woman was no longer welcome or helpful to anyone. So nobody wanted her. She had gone through and she had lived and been married to all these other men. People had passed away and died, and there was nobody left in her family. So she comes to draw water in the middle of the day when it's the hottest time of the day. She meets Jesus, and Jesus is saying, give me some water, but if I give you water, you won't be thirsty again. And she has this desire for belonging. We tend to, unfortunately, have been looking at this interaction with Jesus and the woman as this is a harlotson, this is a woman who's loose. She goes through men, she's murdering them in their sleep and moving on to the next one. And we see her as this easy woman because we're reading it through the eyes of our Western ideas of what marriage is instead of what the biblical idea of marriage is in this time of Jesus, where she no longer has a place to belong. And the one place where she is finding belonging, the family, that man is not even willing to bring her in. She's on the outskirts of it. And she has a place to maybe stay dry and stay warm, but he hasn't brought her into the family. She doesn't belong. And she has this longing, and we all have this human longing for not only acceptance, but for community. Some of you is different than others. Like, I love being in community, and after I'm with a bunch of people, I'm all psyched up and I'm hyper and I'm bouncing off the walls. And Annie likes to be in community, but when she's done, she's exhausted. She's that introvert where she can do fine in the moment, and then she's like, I'm the extrovert. Like, you guys get me high kind of thing. Like, I'm bouncing off the wall. And we're wired to connect. And when we don't find that connection in the correct places, we go to the wrong places to find that connection. And as we're going to those wrong places to find that connection, we don't create authentic communities. We start creating these things where it's a reciprocal quid pro quo. What can you do for me, and what can I do for you? And the interesting thing with Jesus is Jesus doesn't give us the quid pro quo. He's not like, you know what, if you decide to follow me, then it's all going to be roses and everything's going to go well. He says, take up your cross and follow me. That's more of a challenge than a quid pro quo. Hey, you know that piece of heavy lumber that I'm walking around with? Pick that up and follow me. Bring your burdens with you as you come and follow me. And one of those burdens that we walk around with in today's day and age is not only dissatisfaction, but thirst. The thirst for community, the thirst for belonging. So why do we feel so empty? Why is our cup empty? Have you ever used to drink normal regular Coke and you drink so much Coke and all that you're always thirsty? Like the sugar makes you more thirsty, or you're drinking Diet Coke and the aspartame makes you more thirsty. Maybe it's my diabetes. Anyway, but there's this idea that you keep drinking, you cannot be satisfied. And that is the rat race that we are in, even as Christians, as we feel like satisfaction can even be found in the church. And do we find it here? No. If we're honest, it's not about the building. It's not about the services. It's not about the ashes I'm about to put on your head. It's about the people. It's about the belonging. It's about the community. It's about the connections. And as we make those connections, we find that those things that we're chasing before that we think need to satisfy us never really satisfied us, but they were a Band-Aid over a shotgun wound, and it was just holding for a while. But what does it mean, though, when he says, but whoever drinks of the water that I give him will never be thirsty again. There is something beautiful about knowing you belong no matter what. You belong no matter what. And even in coaching high school soccer, one of the things I've been trying to create with the girls these last couple of years is you belong no matter what. It doesn't matter if you can run a 4-second 40-yard dash or if it takes you 5 minutes to run it. There is a place for you here, that you belong not because of what you bring, but you belong because you are part of something greater. And what the church needs to do, what our churches need to do worldwide, is this idea that this place, this church, the community needs to shed itself of all the things that divide and say that we are now a place where we can find that you no longer have to chase the need to be satisfied. You can now be here even when you're not satisfied. And going from satisfaction, how many of you love being right? How many of you are certain that you are always right, no matter what? Or how many of you have grown up enough to know that you're never right and your wife is always right, no matter who's arguing with you? So as we're looking at satisfaction, I want us to give up the need to be satisfied during Lent. Give up your need to be satisfied and find where you belong. And as you find where you belong, you will find something that's far greater than satisfaction, and that's purpose and community. The other thing I'm challenging us to give up as we go into Lent is certainty. That we are always right about everything, but not only that, that we can re-find the wonder of a child. Because with too much knowledge comes the lack of mystery. It's like Emma and Grayson talking about how the sun moves. Like, that's the wonder that he has. He thinks that the earth is here and the sun moves around it, but once he finds out that it doesn't really work that way, and it's not that he loses that wonder a little bit. There's something about being wrong sometimes that is kind of, maybe I'm romanticizing a little, like not knowing all the facts, but with certainty then comes ego. And with ego comes the inability to converse. And with the inability to converse comes the inability to have authentic community. We need to give up our right to constantly be right, even when we are right. We need to give up our right to be right even when we are right. It's one of the most difficult things you can ever do, specifically maybe with a spouse or a child or a coworker. And it's not just saying, well, okay, we're just not going to argue about it anymore. It's the ability to say it's not worth ruining this relationship over. My relationship with this individual is worth more than arguing, saying that you have to cook the pizza at $3.75, not $4.25. And it's okay, even though the instructions are in front of you and it says 400. You're both wrong. Not that's ever happened in my house. But we need to give up our need for certainty, because we live in the golden age of information, where we can be so certain of everything, but we're on this precipice of where you ask AI a question and it's going to give you the wrong answer. And the certainty goes out the window. And I've had discussions with people who said, well, ChatGPT said. I'm like, well, ChatGPT might be wrong. Nope. If it came off the internet, by golly, it's what? It's right. And they're so certain, even though it's what? It's wrong, and they dig their heels in, and what does it do to the relationship? I don't want to talk to them anymore. I want us to get over our need to be right. Even Christ brings this aura to about how to act when you know what's going to happen. Because Jesus, when Lazarus dies, could have done a couple of things. Stop crying. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. I'm going to walk in there, and I'm going to make Lazarus' day worse, because right now Lazarus is up with God, and I'm about to bring him back to earth. And is not going to enjoy that interaction. He's with God, now we're going to bring him back kind of thing. But we have this idea that Jesus doesn't interact with him that way. Even though he knows what he's about to do, Jesus does what? He enters community. He gets onto people's level, and he weeps. Jesus wept is one of the most powerful scriptures in one of the most powerful verses in the scriptures, because Jesus knows what he's going to do next. Yet he still enters into community with them and sees people who are hurting and doesn't try to fix it right away. He doesn't say, I have all the answers, I am certain. He goes, I'm going to enter your uncertainty in this moment, and I'm going to weep with you. And as I weep with you, there's a bond that happens between Mary and Jesus and the rest of Lazarus' family that is beyond anything about leading Lazarus out of the grave, and all about that human connection of now I know and experience what you have experienced. And that is where empathy really kind of fits in. And one of the most beautiful things that we can do as we give up our certainty is enter into other people's chaos and not try to fix something. And let me tell you what, I love to fix nothing in the house, but situations. I like to fix situations every now and then. And one of the hardest thing to do is just to sit and listen and nod one's head and not say it's going to be okay, and not say all the Christian platitudes, and weep with people who weep, and be present. And that's giving up our certainty and our right to be right, because Jesus had every right to walk into Mary's life when Lazarus died and said, don't worry, now's the time I'm going to raise him from the dead. Stop your crying. He weeps with them. And as I'm challenging you to give up seeking satisfaction and to give up your right to be right, I'm going to poke the bear for everybody tonight. And I want us to take a moment to reevaluate what some people consider maybe a couple of the cornerstones to our faith. Now, this is going to be dangerous, and you're going to live with it, so it's okay. The faith that we have been sold over and over again is a faith that has evolved over time. The way that we express our faith is not the way that the first century disciples exercised their faith. The way that we exercise our faith now is not the way it's going to be exercised in 180 years. Faith and our belief systems evolve over time as we encounter the context of our time. And that's an interesting thing. There's one thing that stays the same, that God is love. God's the constant, but the way that is expressed in our reality and our context may evolve over time. And one of the greatest damages, I think, that the church has done through like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even up to today has been the guilt-stricken, say this prayer or go to hell. Say this prayer or go to hell. I remember, I think I shared this as a child, that sometimes when I was younger, nobody was at home, I'm like, oh crap, I missed the rapture. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't say the right prayer. The rapture happened. All my friends and family said the right prayer. And how am I going to survive with? And then they always showed back up. They said the wrong prayers as well. But we have that, and that's rooted in that certainty. And we need to get rid of that certainty. That's rooted in that satisfaction of I am satisfied knowing that I'm going somewhere that other people might not go because I am better than, because I am along with God. It's breaking that being satisfied through our identity in Christ. But now it's also understanding that what does heaven and hell truly look like? And as we look at what heaven and hell truly looks like, I'm challenged by the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, where Lazarus is outside the rich man's house and he has sores all over his body, and the rich man walks by him every day, throws a couple scraps, and moves on. The rich man has the ability, the wealth, and the means to help Lazarus who is outside his house. And he chooses not to. And it says they both die, and Lazarus goes to Abraham, and it says that the rich man goes to Hades. Not hell, Hades. And in that moment, he goes, oh, I want to send somebody back to tell my brothers about this place. They don't want to go to this Hades place. And basically what is said in that moment is, you have the ability to relieve the suffering of Lazarus, and you chose not to. Why will we let you go back to give this message? Because in that moment, we would say that Lazarus, in being outside, is in hell. And the rich man is in heaven. And they have the ability to relieve the suffering of those on the outside, and they choose not to. The rich man perpetuated the hell that somebody lived in to continue building the heaven he thought he was in. And then the story flips, because the one who suffers, remember in the Beatitudes, blessed are those who are poor, for they shall be satisfied. But woe to you who are rich, for you shall hunger. And all of a sudden we have the switch between the rich man and Lazarus. And Lazarus is now being able to be in the presence of God, and the rich man is not. And we have this weird thing that in the story and the way that's presented in modern Christianity is heaven, hell, when in reality heaven and hell exist now. Heaven and hell exist in today's reality. There was a horror movie that came out 1997. Don't watch it, Ian. It was called Event Horizon. Anybody ever seen Event Horizon? It's a stupid movie. But basically they learn how to bend reality, and they're able to move from one point in space and time to another point in space in a flash of an eye. But the only way they get there is they have to travel through hell. So as they go from one place to another, they get all these demons on their spaceship. And there's this line that is the most profound line I've ever heard in any movie. And they're talking about hell, and he goes, we think we're experiencing hell right now, but the reality is a lot worse. When we're talking about heaven and hell, the church tends to really wash it up, clean it up, by saying it's someplace in the future. That don't worry about it. You're part of the in club. Don't worry about it. When in the reality, hell is in the present now, and it is our responsibility, if we are like the rich man, to help the Lazaruses. And so what we want to do as we are looking at this time where we're not seeking satisfaction anymore, we're done looking to be satisfied, when we're getting rid of our certainty, when we're getting rid of all this idea that we'll always have to be right, we can now look at what others need and the humanity and the frailty of other people. If you listen to Pope Leo's Ash Wednesday Mass today, one of the things he said is these ashes should remind us that the world and the city is burning in war. Not too far down the roads from us, that the world is burning. And in my picture, as I'm listening to his homily, I'm thinking of Nero playing his fiddle, watching Rome burn, as the rich get richer and Nero has nothing to worry about. But who are the ones who suffer in war? Who are the ones who suffer in times of need? Who are the ones who are suffering when the world is burning? Is it the rich, or is it those who are poor? And it's the poor. Those who have needs, those who don't have their needs met. So as we prepare to look at each other and look at humanity, I want us to go back to Jesus at the well. He's interacting with this woman, and this woman who's thirsty, who has no place to belong, he rehumanizes her after everybody has dehumanized her. You're not worth a pinch of salt. Not even going to marry you. You can just stay here. You're of no good to us. We go then to Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man looks at Lazarus and dehumanizes him. You're sick. You got sores. I can't have anything to do with you. I'll use these religious tones. I'll become unclean if I deal with you. Christians do that. Christians use Christianese to avoid dealing with people they don't want to deal with. You go, unfortunately, through the AIDS pandemic. When it first came out, and the church was not the first place where people could go, and people with AIDS were seen as what? Dirty, and you're not allowed here because we might get contaminated, kind of thing. And the church, unfortunately, historically does the same thing, is the last on the bandwagon to do something for helping people. And it's because we feel more like the rich man, and we look at those who are in need, and we say, we can't get dirty. And we have to dehumanize them. And so what our challenge is as we are preparing to have ashes is the following. You were born, you would die, just like everybody else. People who were born in Belding, people who were born in South America, people who were born everywhere, we are born and we are mortal. And the common thread between all of us is not only are we mortal, but we're all made in the image of Christ. And once we stop looking for that satisfaction and we give up that right to be right, and we start forming community, not based on quid pro quo of what can you bring to my community, but how can we be communal together. Once we start building those communities not based on what people give us, but based on the fact that they're human, then those communities will thrive. Not only will they thrive, but they'll be looking like heaven. We'll be giving glimpses of heaven into a world that looks like and feels like and is at times burning. And those ashes remind us of that. As we look into the book of Revelation, it talks about heaven being this idea of no more pain, no more suffering, no more tears, and that everything is centered around God. It uses this picture of God in Christ being the center focal point of everything. And once community has that central focal point, not being religion, but being God, and maybe push the buttons a little bit more poke the bear a little bit more as you travel through Lent. Who is God to you? One of the hardest things I did probably 7-8 years ago was totally deconstructed who I believed God to be. Well, Emmett's 12 now, so holy cow, that was a long time ago. Because I grew up thinking God was a monster. I didn't think he was. That's just what I was taught. God's this monster. And I was on the right side of the monster. Which if you're on the right side of the monster, you're doing well. And when I had my kid, I realized, my gosh, this is totally, we're on live stream, so I can't say what I was going to say. Messed up. God's not this monster. God's this mystery that I don't fully comprehend or understand. And what does love truly look like? And if you've ever watched The Princess Bride, it's one of the most toxic movies about love. Because as she pushes him down the hill, what does he say? As you wish. Anybody seen The Princess Bride? Nobody? Come on. So if you haven't seen The Princess Bride, you got to watch that one. As you wish. And it's that abusive relationship. Like, I'll do anything for you, even let you push me down this hill. And love isn't that. Love is being present in the presence of a community that accepts you where you are for who you are, how you are. Not expecting you to be like them, but understanding that we are all human. So we're going to do one exercise here before we have our ashes, and it's going to seem strange, but it's okay because we're doing a little bit of liturgy here. I'm going to ask you to be quiet, not that you've been talkative for a while. I want silence for a minute. I'm going to read something, and all I need for you to do collectively is breathe in and breathe out. That's your response. So breathe in and to breathe out. We're going to practice it first. The people on the live stream will be delayed by about a second. But we're just going to do a breathe in and a breathe out. So I'm going to read, and then we'll do that together. Most holy and merciful Father, we confess that we have sinned by our own doing in thought, word, and deed, and that I have not fully loved my brother, my sister, and humanity at all times with my whole heart. We confess that we have not loved our neighbor as ourselves, that we have not sought justice for those who suffer, or mercy for those who struggle. We confess to you, Lord, that we love the worldly goods and comforts, that we want to be filled, that we want to be satisfied, and that we want to be right more than we want to love our neighbor as ourselves. So, Lord, have mercy on me. Restore me, revive me, and lead me on from this place. Amen. So at this time, you can sit in silence as long as you want. I have the ashes here. As I apply the ashes on your forehead, I will say, from ashes you came, and to ashes you shall return. It is a reminder of your humanity, your mortality, but also the ashes that everybody else is as well. The idea that we are all human. From ashes you came, and ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, return. From ashes you came, from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. You can put it on your hand if you want. Yeah, I can come to you. I can come to you if you want. From ashes you came, and from ashes you shall return. One of the things we're going to do throughout the Lent season is, as we get ready for Holy Week, all of our services are going to be like this. No big production. One of the things that I'm looking to do is simplify things. There's such thing as burnout, and we have some amazing musicians in this church. And the last thing I want to do is tag on to all the different things that they need to do. And I also think it makes our Music Sunday and our Easter Sunday so much more meaningful when we've been stripped away of a lot of these things, and then we come together on Easter and we hear the organ and we hear the piano and we hear the singing, and it's something. It's almost like you miss it. So I'm gonna turn this off and turn the live stream off so you guys can all say what you want to say. There's no rush to leave, and you can disagree with everything I said because I'm not certain of it. I got to give up.